Hi, everybody. I'm Allison Williams, the Library Services Coordinator for the Copper Queen Library, and I am so thrilled to welcome Anastasia. Anastasia Bannikova was born in Russia and grew up in Kazakhstan during the breakup of the Soviet Union. And she went on to live in Canada and the US, became an American citizen, and served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Ghana, Ukraine, and Armenia from 2014 to 2020. And prior to serving, she worked as a reporter, a translator, a wedding DJ, and a paralegal, and is currently the regional Peace Corps recruiter for the state of Arizona, and is now joining us here. And Anastasia, I'm just so thrilled to welcome you and have you share more information about the Peace Corps with our community. And also your personal history is fascinating to me. I hope we can hear some stories about your journeys in the Peace Corps. Welcome.
Thank you, Allison. Hi, Jean. Thank you all for tuning in. Hi. So my name is Anastasia. I'm a regional recruiter for Peace Corps in Arizona. So that's my main current job. I know I had plenty. And so the purpose of this presentation, this talk, is to, share my story through the Peace Corps lens and talk a little bit about what Peace Corps is all about, who can join, what volunteers do, where volunteers serve. As a recruiter, that's my job to tell these things, but yes, I will also share a little bit about my history, my heritage, and my background. So yes, I am a returned Peace Corps volunteer. This is what we call ourselves when we return from the service. We're not former, we're not, burned out volunteers. We're returned Peace Corps volunteers, and we always stay volunteers. And I served in not in one, but 3 different lovely countries. As Alison mentioned, I served in Ghana, which is in West Africa, Ukraine, which is in the news a lot, and Armenia, which is also a post-Soviet state. And as you can see, I've served in various capacities, we call it sectors of service, which I'll talk a little bit later. And while I served, I also learned a handful of languages, because Peace Corps is very good at teaching you a foreign language, even though you may not have any basics of that language before. So they do a good job. And that would help you to become a better volunteer. And so Peace Corps is a federal volunteering agency. We were founded in 1961 by John F. Kennedy. And it's a 27-month service. So volunteers serve across the globe in one of the over 60 countries, well, now actually 70 countries, for 27 months, or basically 2 years and 3 months. And I liked it so much that I just continued serving, as you can see. So the main mission of Peace Corps is to promote world peace and friendship, which may sound cheesy, but it's very important, especially to this day. And the 3 goals of that mission are: the first one is to help people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained individuals. And what it means is that, for example, Ghana or Kazakhstan or Mongolia or Guinea, they request Peace Corps to come and send volunteers there and collaborate with the counterparts in that country on maybe teaching English, or working with farmer groups, or empowering girls, or working on various public health issues, etc. So the key word again is interested. So we don't just go and do whatever. We don't just come anywhere we please and do anything we want. We're not a disaster relief agency either. And we're not a religious mission, of course. Again, we're a federal agency. So it's almost like a grassroots development agency, like in the form of USAID, but of a very, very grassroots level. And then and a cultural exchange, because the other 2 goals are very cultural exchange heavy. As you can see, it's help promote better understanding of Americans on the part of people served. And the other one is to help to promote better understanding of other people on the part of Americans. So what does that mean? It means that as a volunteer, maybe you're an English teacher, maybe you're a farm capacity builder. Every day you wake up, you know, go for a jog or go fetch water from the well, have coffee, say hello to your neighbors, and you talk about yourself. You talk about where you grew up. You talk about what you had for breakfast in the United States. You talk about what jobs you worked, what, you know, classes you had at school, what clothes you wore, what type of projects or what type of fun things you did with your friends. So this is basically kind of cultural exchange from your end. And then when you're done with the service, or even during your service, you can share your experiences in that country of service with your family and friends. So you can also talk what people had for breakfast, what you did as a daily routine in Guinea or Peru or Macedonia, right? What type of festivals and festivities people invited you to. So again, it may sound not like much, but in my mind, those are very important goals for the Peace Corps mission and for overall peace and friendship building. So these are the reasons why people choose Peace Corps. As you can see, you know, build relationships, to challenge yourself, to immerse yourself in different cultures, which is to me, it's just wonderful, because I am a product of Peace Corps, and more on that later. But my favorite is to be someone's window into the United States, because I myself am an immigrant. I grew up in a different country where we had a Peace Corps post. And what happened was I was in a school that was specialized, that would teach us English from an early age. And they requested Peace Corps volunteer teachers to come in and help our teachers to teach English in a fun and accessible manner. And so this is how I actually got exposed to Peace Corps. So these pictures are from those good old days. So I'm in black and white. I think I'm 15 or 16 years old. Still learning English. And the picture on the upper left is of Megan, who was a Peace Corps volunteer who would come to our classes. She was from Chicago. She had a Chicagoan accent. She was my first American, quote unquote, real American I've met in real life. And that was just fascinating to me. And when she said that, oh yeah, I'm a Peace Corps volunteer, I just, you know, this is what I do. I was fascinated because volunteers would come to my country willingly. They weren't forced to do it. They would live the way we would live. They would live in the, you know, unheated apartments. They would take old buses to our schools. They would eat our food. They would speak our language, right? They would learn Russian and Kazakh languages. So that was fascinating to me. So I thought that Peace Corps volunteers were the most brave, the most adventurous people who really wanted to learn about other cultures. And I made that decision at that time to myself to either work for Peace Corps or volunteer with Peace Corps. And I've done both. I'm working right now and I volunteered. So both goals, they did come true. And me and Megan, we continue to be friends, and to this day. And even when I was in Ghana, some 20 years later, since our last meeting back in Kazakhstan, she actually visited me. So in the picture on the right, you can see her in the middle, me on the outer edge, visiting me and other volunteers in Ghana. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful reunion. And so in a way, this can be your story too. Everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own friendships built. Volunteers make friends with, you know, host country nationals, with their host families, with other volunteers, you know, Friendship for Life, or with kids that they taught. And so those kids, like me, they could grow up and they could actually do something like I did, you know, become an American citizen in Peace Corps. Because one of the main requirements, as you can see in this slide, is to be a US citizen in order to qualify for volunteering with Peace Corps, and to be at least 18 years old. There is no age limit. By the way, some people think that, you know, they might be too old. Well, our oldest volunteer, as you can see, was 86 years old. So that tells you something. So a lot of times when some people say, oh, you know, don't have time, or I'm too old, you're not too old. if you have time and you can do Peace Corps, you should do Peace Corps. I did Peace Corps in my 30s because I could do it at that time. A lot of people do it right after college, so it's a great opportunity for you guys, college graduates, and also for retirees, for military people, for anybody. We accept people of all ages, as I said, all races, all backgrounds, because we really want to represent America as in real life, not as in Hollywood movies or in music videos or even in newsreels, but actual people serving in different countries and representing America. So yeah, this slide also has lots of good information. So another third requirement is you must have either, not both, a bachelor degree in any field or 5 years of professional experience, applicable experience. So here it says 95% of volunteers have at least an undergraduate degree, but that's not the requirement, the only requirement. So for example, if you, for example, grew on a farm, or if you had family business, you have great experience for volunteering, because we have agriculture sector where you can work with farm groups, or we have community development sector where you can work with business groups and share your knowledge. It's basically knowledge sharing about different cultures, knowledge sharing about your experiences and skills, and then you learn back. And a lot of volunteers actually said they learned more than they shared. That's kind of their perception was, because they learned a lot. So yeah, that's those are just some statistics. This is where we've been serving. It's a little outdated because we unfortunately had to leave China and Myanmar in the past 2 years for various reasons. But as you can see, Peace Corps is across the globe. We are on every continent but Northern American continent, of course, Australia and Antarctica. We are in Pacific, we are in Asia, we are in Europe, our biggest volunteer generator, Central America and Caribbean, of course. So, and you can choose where you can serve, provided you have the skill sets for that position. So for example, if you don't like cold weather, you don't have to apply for Mongolia or Armenia. You can apply for Fiji or Cameroon or Indonesia, if you like tropics. If you're flexible, you can actually apply for to serve anywhere, and we can decide where you can serve. But you can also indicate like, hey, I don't like cold weather, or I don't like hot weather. So if you want to be cold, you can go to Mongolia. So this is just like some sprinkles of my life as a Peace Corps volunteer. So this is my first country of service. It was Ghana. Ghana chose me. I did not choose Ghana. That was back in the day when the system was a little different. You couldn't really choose where you could serve. But I'm very glad that Ghana chose me, because I had a lot of fun. In fact, I had so much fun that I extended my service for a 3rd year. So you can actually do it too. You don't have to do 2 years of service and be gone. If you have a project you want to finish, if you're just enjoying your time, you can extend your service up to 1 year. And these are just some pictures that I taken. So the food is very spicy in Ghana. If you like spicy food, West Africa is your place. Ghana is right next to equator, so the sun would go up and down at the same time throughout the year. There was no, early or late rising or sunsetting. And yeah, so I was agriculture volunteer in Ghana, but I did other fun projects. So being Peace Corps volunteer is kind of like being your own boss in a way, because you live in the community, you gain each other trust, they learn about you, you learn about them, and then you kind of can figure out what you can do with different groups, with kids or women or school, principals or any other counterparts. So that's what kind of was great about Peace Corps. There was not really much structure, but you created that structure. So in these pictures, I did batik making and tie-dye. As you can see, it was a lot of fun. A lot of people loved it, and it was just like, okay, I love batiking and tie-dye, and let's do it. I distributed reading glasses because I got connected with an NGO that just sent me a bunch of reading glasses, so that was a lot of fun. People could read their Bible in the church better. And then on the right, there's a picture of grassroots soccer activity. That was a life skill, healthy lifestyle training for teenagers and kids using a soccer ball. Ghanaians love soccer, football. They're actually in the World Cup right now. Hopefully they'll win. And that was a lot of fun. So a lot of schools heard about me doing it. So one school was done with the program, and then the other school asked me to do it. So I was traveling from school to school, from group to group, and taught grassroots soccer and taught batik making, jam making in a way. I also raised rabbits. That was the most agricultural project that I've done, because it was just rabbits were easy and it was for food security. And I did a couple of projects with organic farm, no-till farming. These are some pictures of my daily routines, day in the life of a volunteer. So it's a lot of waiting to be a volunteer, especially in Africa. It was called Ghana time where I was, because nothing would start on time. It wasn't like in the United States where there's timetable and you know exactly when things start and when things end. You just kind of had to go with the flow. So this is me sitting and waiting for whatever. It can be a taxi, it can be a counterpart, it can be a meeting, it can be a training. It can be anything, kids coming in and asking me to do, you know, something fun with them. It's just waiting. But as you wait, you kind of mellow out a little bit because, you know, you again, as an American with like type A personality, it may seem a little hard, but then you kind of figure it out. You bring a book, you talk with people, you practice your language skills. All of that is a lot of fun. I learned how to carry things on my head. I had to fetch water from the well every day. So that was a good skill to gain. And then I was surrounded by kids. So no matter where you serve, you're going to be drowning in kids. If you like kids, if you don't like kids, you're going to be surrounded by kids. So this is what I did with the kids. We did, again, healthy lifestyle, malaria prevention, HIV prevention. They do stenciling. And then they would come to my courtyard and we'll be like saying, Madame, let's do something. And I had to come up with something out of nothing. We would do recycling projects. We would recycle, for example, plastic bottles or cardboard. We would make, you know, butterflies or masks or something useful. So that was just basically something that was out of nothing. Like I said, it was something fun. And of course, I loved going to the market. So this is a picture of the market. Every week I would have to go and bargain for prices, because this is what you do. You don't just go to the supermarket and buy whatever and check out. You have to go from stall to stall and actually advocate for yourself. And again, the language skills that we've got helped us to say, oh, it's too much, oh, I'm going to come by later. And then people will try to entice you with their lower prices. So that was a lot of fun. These are some traveling pictures. I love to travel in general. And so in Ghana, I traveled as not a tourist, not on a bus, but on these little mini buses and also shared group taxis. Sometimes I would see the picture in the middle. I'd be like a truck just overturned because the roads are a little smaller than ours. But I just, you know, I was safe. I never felt I was, in any harm's way, because what Peace Corps does, it also, they train you to be safe. They train you to be healthy. They train you how to ask for help. They train you how to actually travel on the local transportation, what to watch out for, when not to travel, or how to identify a driver who may not be reliable. So this is what we actually did. And so I felt very safe. And then Ghana is sort of divided into northern and southern region. So northern region on the left is very savanna-like. It's very dry, kind of like Arizona, if you think about it. And on the right is a picture of a southern part of Ghana with like lush rainforest, which was beautiful. And I served in the south. So, but I saw the north through just like traveling for fun. Okay, so these are our concentrations, or as I mentioned, sectors of service. So these are main sectors of service that our volunteers serve in. I already mentioned agriculture. This is what I did in Ghana. Education is our biggest sector, and it's kind of like when people think Peace Corps, they think, okay, teaching English. So this is what a lot of our volunteers do. They teach English. And a small subsection of this sector is math and science teachers in West Africa. And just full disclosure, if you do have a math or science degree and you want to apply for Peace Corps, this is the easiest way to get your foot in the door in Peace Corps, because we never have enough teachers for math and science. So you can apply and almost immediately get in. And then you can do other projects, because sectors of service are very interchangeable, interrelatable. Like I said, even though I was agriculture volunteer in Ghana, I did health promotion projects with youth, you can think I did youth development because I'd also worked with kids. Youth development does work on capacity building. So my colleagues did business literacy, for example, English tutoring. Again, a lot of times, no matter what your sector is, you do tutor or mentor or teach English in some capacity or whatnot. Let's see, environment volunteers. This is a competitive sector. You must have an environmentally related degree like forestry, agroforestry, environmental science, because you would be working with farmers on those issues. A lot of our environment positions are actually in Central and South America. And community development sector is also very popular and kind of typical for Peace Corps, kind of image where volunteer would work on various business building capacity projects, maybe grant writing, also again working with local governments, local NGOs, and kind of connect them. Some of my colleagues taught Excel courses because the counterparts wanted to learn how to do it to run their businesses better. Some of them got involved in like big marketing campaigns. So it all depends again on the needs of the communities and also your skills and experiences. Okay, so next up was Ukraine. And so this time I actually chose to serve in Ukraine. In full disclosure, I'm Ukrainian Russian. So I have relatives in Ukraine and Russia, and I grew up in Kazakhstan, as Alison mentioned. So I really wanted to come to Ukraine and kind of rediscover my Ukrainian heritage. And the picture in the middle is of my great-grandmother. So she lived in the central part of Ukraine, and I visited her little village when I had time. So Ukraine in a way was completely different from Ghana, where I completely felt like at home. I wasn't, wasn't feeling stressed from not knowing the language, for example, which is part of the fun in the service. So no one was American. I would just blend in really, really well. And actually, in lots of cases, Spanish-speaking volunteers, when they serve in, Peru or Costa Rica, and they have those roots, they're also kind of perceived almost like locals by the locals. So that's a little different experience, but I'm very glad I chose Ukraine because again, it's kind of part of my heritage. And I was community development, but what did I do? Again, I taught English. We did lots of youth camps, and we did courses and trainings and classes with kids of different age groups on stigma reduction, on leadership, on anti-bullying, and of course English. And so these are just some camp pictures. There was a lot of fun. This is a collaboration project, so a lot of countries where volunteers can gather together and do a camp like this in the region, or like whole country camp. That takes a lot of work, and so this is why several volunteers do this work together. One applies for the grant, another is a marketing person, and another one looks for the kids for the camp. So again, collaboration is the key. And of course, you collaborate with local schools, local youth groups, local counterparts on that. So I had a lot of fun. And of course, I traveled. That's my favorite pastime. I took a lot of trains in Ukraine. As you may have heard, Ukraine is a train country. So this is what I did. I would go to Kiev or Odessa or Lviv on the train overnight, often overnight, full of strangers, but then you would kind of become friends, or you chat a little bit before you go to bed, and you don't feel you don't feel weirded by it at all. Like, okay, I'm riding with strangers and we're just talking, and then we go to sleep. I did some hiking, and the right, it's a picture of my trekking experience in the Carpathian Mountains. I did kayaking in Kherson area. I'm doing my Ukrainian accent. Kherson. It's been in the news a lot, as you could have heard, and it's in the Dnipro River, where Dnipro goes into the Black Sea. So I did kayaking there. So it was a lot of fun. Again, traveling and food sampling was my favorite task. So this is food. You may know some of these foods. The red beet soup is borscht. It's the UNESCO heritage soup. Vareniki or pierogis is dumplings with potatoes or cabbage or cherries sometimes, or anything you want. And of course, you may know the embroidered shirt, the vyshyvanka shirt, that's also been in the news, and people wear it with pride. And each region has its own pattern. And I actually have vyshyvanka from my great-grandmother. It's stuffed in the closet. Okay, so back to kind of Peace Corps numbers, Peace Corps fun facts and figures. So how do you survive as a volunteer? So some people actually assume that they have to pay to get into Peace Corps, but that is completely incorrect. You don't have to pay anything. We actually pay you. You would have a stipend. You would have vacation days, two vacation days per month. We'll provide housing for you, or community provide the housing. While you are a volunteer, the medical is all covered. You know, if you're sick or if you have a routine checkup, it's all there. You know, each post will have a facility for that. Great career and skills training, as I mentioned. The first 2 months, in fact, is a pre-service training where you will learn local language, local culture, how to be safe, how to be healthy, and also technical skills on either teaching English or building rabbit hatches, etc. So great trainings. And then throughout your service, there's more trainings with you and your counterparts. Safety and security is our #1 priority. So as a volunteer, we're not just going to leave you alone and, you know, never hear from you for 2 years. Like I mentioned, we do have medical officer in case of any emergency. We have security officers that monitor safety situations in each country, and each country may have something different. In the Caribbean, for example, they watch out for hurricanes and they make sure they consolidate volunteers in case the hurricane kind of comes close. In Armenia, where I served, it's an earthquake-prone country, so our security officer would send us the update on earthquakes in different areas. And of course, in Ukraine and other areas, it may be something military, you know, some conflict related. So we were told, you know, what to do, where not to go, where we can go for help, etc. So really well established safety protocols. Of course, we have U.S. government support. The U.S. Embassy at each post always communicates with us in case of any emergencies. When I arrived in Ghana, that was in the middle of the Ebola epidemic in West Africa, and so we were kind of not sure, like, are we going to stay? Are we going to linger? But U.S. Embassy just continued to supply us with updates, and apparently Ghana was very safe. You know, Ghana kind of kept Ebola at bay, so that was good. As I mentioned, immersion training. So immersion training is great for language, for culture. Most likely you will live with a host family at some point, either during training or during your service, or both. And a lot of volunteers really loved it. They said they became friends with the host families. The host families helped them in every shape or form, by helping with language or places to stay, of course, food, moral support, etc. So it's really, really great. So this is my last stop so far. So this was Armenia. Armenia is a really tiny country surrounded by pretty powerful neighbors, but it's very proud. It's beautiful. It's full of mountains. So as you can see, this is just pictures from outside of my community, and basically Armenia is full of mountains no matter where you go. As I mentioned, the Armenians are very proud of their heritage. So this is the picture of me pretending to be an Armenian scout. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, so I did a lot of coffee drinking there because that's what people do, and this is how you kind of become friends. And you can go to any house without being invited. You knock on the door and there's always something for you, either coffee or snack or tea or even dinner. People are super hospitable. Everywhere I went, actually, people were hospitable. So my town where I was youth development volunteer wanted me to do tourism development, actually. So that's another kind of example of what you can do. You may think you will do A, but then you be doing Z. So it's full of contrast. It's full of different possibilities. But we did try to do some tourism development projects. One of them is this lovely billboard on the highway. We did business English courses, of course, again, teaching English, that's the key. There was a youth club. I did debate club with the kids who already spoke a little bit of English. And again, I traveled. Traveling was a lot of fun. These are the benefits after you finish your service successfully. So they continue, folks. As you can see, lots of great benefits. You get a chunk of money. You have a great grad school benefit that's good for life. A federal employment advantage, which is what I used to get my foot in the door and become a recruiter. So that's for 1 year, where you can get your resume on the top of the pile and get interviewed for federal position. There is a public loan forgiveness, and I forgot to mention, while you are volunteer, and if you do have loans, they can be deferred. That's another benefit during service. But yeah, in some cases, there could be even service loan forgiveness. And of course, networking, knowledge sharing. Peace Corps volunteers are everywhere. They always send us job postings from their organizations. They work for private companies, public sectors, international companies, schools, etc. So they always want to hire return volunteers too, because once a return volunteer, always a return volunteer. There's almost like this fraternity, this unspoken thing, like you kind of have this shared experience, even though you may have served in different countries and different years. A little bit about Coverdell. So this is a grad school benefit that I mentioned. Again, good for life. Over 100 universities participate. It varies from a full ride to partial tuition waiver. So it depends on the program. And NAU, U of A, and ASU, the major universities in Arizona have Coverdell. So that's something to consider. So you may ask, okay, well, Anastasia, what do I do to apply? How do I become a volunteer? Well, first of all the information that I mentioned, the benefits, the qualifications, etc., and the postings, as you can see, are on our website, peacecorps.gov. And so you can browse our positions. You can see what we have posted, what countries are looking for volunteers, what the deadlines are, and each position would have preferred skill sets, which means that they list, okay, we really like someone with an environmental degree to be our environment volunteer, or you can have a bachelor degree in any field and some tutoring experience, and you can teach English in Georgia. So a lot of positions have different requirements. So this is up to you to start looking and kind of seeing, do I have what it takes to be an agriculture advisor in Zambia, or am I more qualified for English teacher in, let's say, Armenia? And also these positions have apply by date, so like deadlines. So you kind of have to apply by that date. And you will see that there is departure date. So you kind of will know when you will depart and can plan your life. I think I mentioned maybe many slides ago, that you can also be flexible. And if you are, which is a great trait for Peace Corps service, you have flexibility and patience. You can actually say, hey, I'm available for anything, for anywhere. You can send me where I'm needed the most. And this is what you can do. And the Peace Corps will determine where to send you. But in this case, you can also specify which regions you would like. Let's say, again, if you want like cold, or which sectors you'd prefer. For example, nothing about agriculture, so it's like, why would I even do that? And so you can say, hey, consider me for education or public health. And as a recruiter, by the way, I can assist you in determining for which position you're most likely to qualify. I can review your resume. I can also review your motivational statement, which is part of the application. And I can also guide you through this application process. It's a multi-step process, as you can see. But again, I can help with the first two and also the step 4, which is an interview prep. So because I really want everyone to apply and also show their skills and skill sets and experiences that really, really help you to get into the Peace Corps. Again, that's my job. Our resumes are usually longer than a regular corporate resume. So this is why I have like a template that I can provide you. We love people with previous volunteering experience. So it's whether it's a local church or big brothers or big sisters. We love previous volunteer experience. We love veterans. We love AmeriCorps alumni. So if you have sort of an out-of-box experience, not just like a regular job, regular education, but leadership experience, mentorship experience, again, volunteering, put it on the resume. And again, I can review it and make sure that you are a competitive candidate. Okay, so this is just the last pictures to kind of show the perspectives I've gained. So I learned to travel light. The picture with luggage is these are my only possessions after 6 years of service. I've learned to dance like nobody's watching. I've hiked and traveled to lots of beautiful places, and I've made friends with volunteers and local host country nationals and kids and adults alike. So this is something that you'll never forget. And I've never forgotten, all my 6 years of Peace Corps service, and I most likely will become a volunteer again. And again, I would love if you are interested in volunteering. I can drop my email address into the chat. I thought this was in the last slide, but it's not. If you're savvy with the QR code, you can scan it and send me your contact information, and that's how we can be in touch. I would love to take some questions. And again, I'll drop my email address into the chat.
Wow, this is fascinating. Thank you so much, Anastasia. Does anybody have any questions? I know I have a couple. I think that, and also the question that comes to mind first is, so you do get a stipend. What does that look like?
Good question. So we like the phrase, it depends. It depends on the country of service, but usually the stipend amount is equal to average salary of a local host country national who, for example, would be teaching. And just to give you numbers, so if, for example, in Ghana, my allowance, and that was, by the way, 8 years ago, was about $220 a month. In Ukraine, it was a little higher. It was about $300 and was a little, later. And then finally in Armenia, which was about 3 years ago, it was like $350 a month. It depends on the cost of living in each country. It depends, of course, on the inflation and the years. So it could increase. And it may not seem like a lot, but it covered groceries, public transportation, the bus tickets that I had to buy, the cell phone credits that we had to buy to kind of add the minutes and the data plan to our phones. We all had phones. Anything, fun things we wanted to do, and had to like save up some money. So yeah, that was the allowance. Sometimes, in some cases, the allowance included rent money that you would pay to host family, or if you rented an apartment later, and that Peace Corps approved for you to live, that was included too.
And at the beginning, you said you also speak Twi and Akan. What is that? I'm unfamiliar with the three.
Sure. Yeah, I usually mention what languages I've learned at the beginning, but I forgot. So Twi and Seshwi are Akan languages. So it's a group of languages in Ghana. Ghana has over 70 languages. So Twi was one of the dominant ones. And so this was a local language that I've learned, and it was spoken widely in Ghana in all the corners. So that was a very useful language to learn. I also learned Armenian while I was in Armenia. I even learned how to read. The Armenian alphabet is very unique. I've learned Ukrainian in Ukraine, of course, and well, it was easier for me because I was already fluent in Russian.
Does anybody else, Anne, Jean, do you guys have any questions?
Well, I didn't realize she had been to Armenia, so this is more of a comment, but my niece just converted to Armenian citizenship to compete for Olympics.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah, she does lots of events in track and field. And
okay.
Yeah, so she actually went there, I think it was right before COVID started. And so now she's got dual, US and Armenian.
Nice. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I would be more like senior corps. I'm not young.
Well, we don't have a senior corps. Peace Corps is for everybody, as I mentioned earlier. It's for all ages. There is no age limit, Anne.
I think that was a new information for me. I just always thought, oh, too bad, it's too late. But in fact, it's not. And
it's never too late.
I think that's so exciting, especially because everybody, like you said, has their own story. Everybody has their own path. And that can change where you want to go next. And I think, especially with the COVID pandemic, we just saw millions of people change their lives and rethink their paths. And this is a really fascinating option. I too love to travel, but I haven't done a lot of it recently. But I love hearing about other people's travel, and it's so exciting. I was actually looking on the website, and I see there's Indonesia and Togo and Mexico, Guatemala, Nepal, Colombia, Costa Rica, the Philippines, Sierra Leone, Lesotho. I'm not sure where that is actually.
At South Africa.
Lesotho, Senegal, Uganda, and South Africa, Zambia. So many fascinating and interesting countries that have current opportunities to serve in.
Yes, and one thing I forgot to mention is we accept couples. So couples can serve together in the same country, in the same community, provided that they're qualified for those sectors of service in that country. So for example, let's see, Ghana has agriculture, health, and science education. So one partner could teach science and math in the village where they placed, while the other partner can teach or work with farmers in the agriculture sector. So that's another thing to consider. And I served with couples of different ages, the either fresh off college, the young couples, or the retired couples. So that's another option to consider with your partner in crime.
And it sounds like you had a lot of different experience and education backgrounds, working with English, but also the agriculture. How did you find your path this way? I mean, it was because you first were in this school with Peace Corps, but when you went into your own education, did you think of that as that you wanted education that would lead you into the Peace Corps?
To be honest with you, I completely forgot about Peace Corps some years later. So I went to school to study journalism because I loved writing and I wanted to really learn the English style of writing. So this was my undergrad, and then I did international studies as a minor. I then went to grad school for international development, which in your mind is like directly related to Peace Corps service in general, right? Sustainability, working with different people, research, etc. But at that time, I completely forgot about Peace Corps. So what happened was I was in this field running a midnight race, as one does. I enjoy running. And I just remembered that I was American citizen at that time and I could join Peace Corps, and it went like a bolt of lightning through me. And the next day I applied to serve anywhere. And that was this, back in the day, that was a system where you put all your skills in one big pot of a resume. And again, Peace Corps kind of decides where to send you. And you can still do that actually for the flexible option. And so I put not just only, my jobs, my education, I also wrote, hey, we had a garden when I was growing up in Kazakhstan. We had rabbits, we had chickens. I helped with harvesting, planting, canning. And that was enough for me to qualify for agriculture volunteer position in Ghana. So the thing is, you don't have to have a direct background. Again, it depends on the skill sets that the country of service asks you to have now, but it could be something, again, like as an experience, or maybe something as you've done as a kid. Again, maybe you grew up on a farm, or maybe you had a family business and you actually learned a lot of ropes on how to run the business, which is a great skill especially for community development. So to answer your question, not really. I wasn't really thriving for this, Peace Corps education. However, when I was, a trainee, I was trained on, agriculture things or, classroom management, etc.
Wow, it's really fascinating. And and I really love that you're also here with us. Like the lightning bolt that struck you in your midnight race, is that learning about these opportunities can remind all of us, oh, I am looking for something. This might be the thing that gives me that new plan or that new idea to take me somewhere. It's really wonderful. Does anybody else have any more questions for Anastasia? Feel free to unmute yourselves.
I'll just say you do an excellent presentation. If I wasn't in the middle of a major medical thing, it's like, wow, this is really interesting.
Awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I too really enjoyed your presentation. I have a friend of many years who went to Tonga in the 70s. And a few years ago, she wrote her memoir. I learned a lot about her in her time in Tonga.
What is the name of the memoir, Jean?
Oh, it was something like, I should have learned, let's see, what was it? Everything I could have learned, I should have learned in Tonga.
I love reading those memoirs. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Anastasia. Thank you so much for joining us. And we do hope to see you at the library in person in the future. We would love to have you back. And thank you so much for bringing all of this to our community in Bisbee and the Copper Queen Library.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for listening. And yes, hope to see you later in person.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.